Hey everyone, today we will discuss the meaning, characteristics, and examples of authentic assessment. Authentic assessment is one of the most practical methods of course evaluation. So aside from the paper and pencil test, which may vary from essay, multiple choice, true or false, matching type. Unlike with these types of evaluation, authentic assessment gets the students involved in practical situations or real-life situations where they can apply what they have learned during the course, lesson, or program in order to solve a specific problem, to perform a real-life task, or to produce a certain product or output. For teachers and instructors, this type of evaluation method or assessment is highly effective. Why? Because authentic assessment does not ask the students to memorize, to recall, to list, to enumerate, to regurgitate, or repeat and follow theoretical information. In authentic assessment, the learning process is to relate it to realistic context, wherein knowledge is all about performance. So understanding authentic methods or authentic assessment methods for classroom learning can help you to assess your students' abilities effectively and provide better support for them as they learn. So what is an authentic assessment? Authentic assessment is a course evaluation method where the students apply their knowledge, their theories, the principles to unique real-life context or situation. So for example, you discuss the theory on how to drive a car. Okay? So you first discuss the principles, the laws, okay, on how to drive a car before the actual performance of driving a car. So for example, today, in order for you to acquire the license or driver's license, first you need to undergo the TDC or the theoretical driving course. That means here you will be discussed. There will be lecture discussions on the laws, theories, and principles in driving a car or motorcycle. After that, there should be a real life or actual performance wherein you will need to apply your knowledge and skills into a particular situation, into real life situation. So natay practical practices, and then natay practical test. Okay, so practical tests are one of the authentic assessments we can use in our class. So Jon Mueller describes it as a form of assessment in which students are asked to perform real-world tasks like driving a car, driving a motorcycle, dancing, cooking, painting, acting, role-playing, script writing, storytelling, okay? So these are real-world tasks that demonstrate meaningful application of essential knowledge and skills. So instead of weighing students' performance against a standardized benchmark like multiple choice, the students execute tasks using the skills and knowledge from the course. It is all about getting the students to solve real-life situations by applying skills and knowledge they have mastered. Okay, for example, after a course on good citizenship, so this is the lesson or the topic, the instructor can ask the students to talk about what they will do if an older adult boards in a bus when all the seats are taken, or how the students will resolve a certain conflict or issue. So students are put in a real-life situation. Then the teacher will assess how the students will respond or solve the conflict or the problem. So using the authentic assessment methods, the teacher can realistically evaluate the students' knowledge, skills, attitude, abilities based on how they apply what they have learned from the topic good citizenship. So this method of course evaluation empowers the instructor to embrace innovation and make objective judgment. Authentic assessment is often described as the meeting point between learning and evaluation. Why? Because authentic assessment does not only provide authentic learning of the students, but it also supports the learning development. So, for example, the teacher will produce certain checklist wherein students can perform self-assessment. For example, the teacher will have the list of tasks or skills to be performed. Then the students will check whether or not they can perform the task accurately. Okay? So here, the instructor defines unique standards for student performance. He curates the criteria for the task and creates a realistic to track the performance. So, for example, you want to assess authentically the development and progress of children in terms of language, vocabulary, and early literacy. You can use this developmental checklist. So, for example, in the subject English. So, we have parts. Here exhibits developmentally appropriate receptive language. So, code 1 means needs development, 2 developing as expected, and 3 advanced development. So, in fall, during that period, for example, you observe that that particular child listens to others while with understanding. You can say 2, you can rate 1, or you can rate 3. So that would mean, so for if there still needs improvement, or it is developing as expected, or already have advanced development. Okay. So for math, for example, this is an example of developmental checklist in math. This is to see if the students can develop number sense and awareness of numbers in the environment. You can still rate the child with 1, needs development, 2, developing as expected, and 3, advanced development. And upon collecting information, you can see on what specific skill na maayo ang estudyante and what specific skill needs development. So for example, in science, with the topic scientific investigation, so this is the checklist to assess the students' authentic learning. So for example, we will assess the students if that particular student can name and describe plants, animals, and humans. You can use 1 for needs development, 2 for developing as expected, and 3 advanced development. So as you can see, this type, the checklist is actually a good alternative for matching type, or false, or multiple choice, or essay type. So here are examples of authentic assessment activities. Number 1, doing laboratory science experiments. Another is conducting social field research or conducting an interview. Third, writing stories and reports for the English subject, or reading and interpreting literary pieces, or creating your own or writing your own poem or story. For in math, solving mathematical problems that have real-world implications. 6. Performing particular skills or competencies like baking, bartending, dancing, painting. 7. Simulation like earthquake simulation, fire simulation, or role-playing, acting. 8. Exhibiting and displaying completed works. 9. Submitting portfolios. And 10. Submitting original creative projects like videos or specific project. So these are the characteristics of authentic assessment. First, authentic assessment starts with clear, definite criteria of performance made known to the students. This means that the teacher should have a clear idea or vision on the expected output or the learning outcome of such learning activity. So it should be clear for the teacher on what competency the students should obtain. And these competencies and set of criteria should be discussed to the students so that students know the expected output of such course or program. Second, authentic assessment is a criterion reference. So that means students are assessed based on a set of criteria rather than norm reference. What do we mean by norm reference? This means students are arranged or classified according to the set of norm or what is normal with respect to the entire class. So that means it identifies the student's specific strength and weaknesses but does not compare the students to other students. So for example, the student A will not be compared to student B. So that means we will not rank the levels of performance of the students. So we will not classify the students according to above average, average, or below average. But instead, in authentic assessment, we will focus on the improvement of skills of the students and identifying their strengths and weaknesses. So here, authentic assessment is an individualized assessment. Third, authentic assessment requires students to make their own answer, their own response to questions or problems, rather than select from given options such as multiple choice items, matching type, true or false. So in authentic assessment, students are required to use range of higher order thinking skills. They can respond to a specific situation based on some principles, laws, or theories. Fourth, authentic assessment often emphasizes performance, and therefore students are required to demonstrate their knowledge, the principles, the lessons they have learned, the skills or competencies in appropriate situations. So, for example, in traditional assessment, you only require your students to list the parts of the computer, identify its functions. In authentic assessment, you will require your students to perform such to use the computer according to its function, like using the Word document, Excel spreadsheet, the PowerPoint, creating a video, using the different software and hardwares of the computer. So an authentic assessment does not rely on the ability to recall facts or memorize details. So they will not list, enumerate, classify. Instead, they will perform such tasks. Fifth, authentic assessment encourages both the teacher and students to determine their rate of progress in cooperatively attaining the desired student learning outcomes. So in here, the teacher is the partner of the students as they learn. So here, the teacher will assess the students as they perform the certain task, and the teacher will serve as a coach, as a partner. The teacher will identify the strengths and weaknesses and help the students achieve the task with efficiency. Sixth, authentic assessment does not encourage rote learning, or what to say as memorizing, okay, and passive taking of tests. So authentic assessment discourages students to just learn in order to pass the test and gain score. Instead, students are required to demonstrate their analytical skills, their ability to integrate what they learn creatively, and ability to work in group, skills in oral and written communications. In brief, students in authentic assessment values not only the finished products, which are the learning outcomes, but also the process of learning. So take note that if you want to improve the product, you need to make sure you're able to improve the process. Because if you able to improve the process, obviously you can improve the product. So authentic assessment should be put on the process of learning. It is used to improve the process of learning so that you can improve the product of learning or the demonstration of actual skills and knowledge. 7. So this is the last characteristic based on our reference. So authentic assessment changes the role of students as passive test takers into become active and involved participants in assessment activities that emphasizes what they are capable of doing instead to test to measure student skills or retain facts has come under scrutiny because of the limitation encountered in determining students' capability to utilize their knowledge and skills. So in here, students are active participants of their own learning. They reflect on their own learning. They assess their own self. They monitor their own progress, or they can do their own self-assessment so that they can identify their own strength, their own weaknesses, on the things they need to improve, okay, in order to be efficient. What are the advantages of authentic assessment? Number 1, it encourages students to actively participate in the evaluation process. Again, students here have the chance to do or perform self-assessments. They can see on what area that needs improvement and how to improve that learning area. Second, authentic assessments provide verifiable evidence of a student's knowledge and application of that knowledge. So, since authentic assessment can be in a form of performance-based, or product-based. Okay, so here it provides a verifiable evidence like dancing, playing the volleyball, acting, painting, performing tasks like baking, solving a problem, poetry, reading, or writing. Okay. Third, it prepares students to take on real-life challenges. That means learners apply top-level logical and analytical skills to solve different real-world tasks. So that means they really do or perform roles that are expected from them. So for example, troubleshooting a computer, teaching demonstration. Okay. Fourth, authentic assessments provide teachers with a holistic overview of the student's performance in the classroom. Its detailed process reveals the strengths and weaknesses of the students and also show learning gaps. So from here, the teachers can tailor the type of strategy he will use so that learning becomes more effective. Fifth, authentic assessment integrates assessment and instruction to create a detailed evaluation process. Unlike with the traditional paper pencil test that is limited on written form, here you can really see how the students progress and develop. 6. Authentic assessments build students' problem-solving skills because you are putting the students in real-life situations and therefore enhances one's ability to apply knowledge and skills to real-life context. Okay? 7. More than assessing the student's performance, authentic evaluations focus on accelerating the student's growth. So it will not, students' learning and growth will not be limited on what is presented on a test paper, but instead, it will be demonstrated in real-world tasks. 8. It enhances student-teacher collaboration because here, teachers and students will be partners of learning and creates positive teaching and learning relationships in the classroom. Here, the teacher will not only be as an evaluator but also serves as the coach, the learning partner of the students. So aside from advantages, so we have the disadvantages of authentic learning. Number 1, it is difficult to grade students' authentic assessment methods. These methods do not have any right or wrong answers. Since it is not really objective, they depend on how well the students interpret and uniquely address the challenges and the context. So you will be rating the students using a rubric. Second, authentic assessment is highly subjective and the results can be unreliable. So that means that since there is no specific absolute one correct answer, the result can be highly subjective. So to eliminate the subjective evaluation, we need to use a rubric. Third, the validity of authentic assessment method is affected by the absence of the standardized evaluation benchmark. It is time-consuming and requires a lot of hands on deck, especially when you have a large class. It is time-consuming because you will need to monitor and supervise, feedback, and coach individual students. And it also takes time, effort, and money to prepare the materials needed to perform such activity or task. Fifth, authentic assessments typically require detailed, personalized, and specific feedback, which can take a lot of time. So that means you will need to provide detailed assessments on the strengths and weaknesses of the students as well as feedback for improvement. So in conclusion, in this article, we have explored the different examples, characteristics, advantages, and disadvantages of authentic assessment. For learning, authentic assessment bridges the gap between the learning process and the real world, and students can see and take part in solving real challenges using the knowledge, theories, principles they obtain from the course. Authentic assessment is time-consuming and demands more resources because of its practical nature. But it is used to optimize the entire process. It is best to use tools like this from which you can gather process data swiftly. When done in the right way, authentic assessment creates long-term value for both and students. Allow me to end my discussion for the meaning and examples of authentic assessment with this comment. Remind yourself that when students graduate, they will apply for a job, and when they apply for a job, they will submit their resume and their TOR, and then also the application letter. Then the HR will interview the person. Then the HR will ask this to the person. I see you did well in school as reflected in your TOR. You have good grades. But what real-world skills do you have? Can we allow our students to just say, test, I have good grades. As you can see in my TOR, I can take and pass test. I even passed the licensure exam. So would it be enough? Would it be enough that the evidence of learning or grades and the passing of the licensure exam? So take note, in the real world, we will not use our TOR. We will not use anymore the score we gained in the licensure exam. Instead, we will need to perform real-world skills or tasks. So therefore, education should have only one purpose, and that is to prepare students for the real world, to do what they need to do, to have or obtain real education, and that means we should provide authentic learning opportunities to our students so that when they graduate, they can perform the real world task. Okay, so I think that will be all for today, and thank you for watching.